is for us the starting point of something that we talked about as a kind of wild idea a time ago with Nicola and Alejandro while we were working on a project. And we decided that as different teams with different capabilities within the university, we should start thinking together about the issues.
It's terrible when people set expectations high. Trained as an architect, went to the same place this guy went to for my education, taught at Harvard for 10 years. And I think in that process, while I was trained as an architect and have a passion for buildings and cities, I started to ask myself a basic question. Why is it that our physical environment, cities, aren't of the quality that we as designers might expect or want them to be? Is it because we don't have enough brilliant designers? Or is it because we don't have enough enlightened clients? Innovation in the public sector. Not what the public sector can do to the market, so the market can be innovative, but actually how do we innovate public sector itself? Because frequently when we talk about innovation in public sector, people say, oh, okay, it's about incentives and this and no. How do you change the machine? The context has changed. And what I like is this is Mia Farrow from Rosemary's Baby, is that moment of horror. I think we can all describe horror in different ways, but the way I'd like to frame it for us today is that horror in movies is frequently that moment where what you thought you knew, you suddenly realize is something completely different, right? Where you thought that was wood paneling, and then you look at it again and you realize it's faces. Or you thought that was ketchup, and it's actually blood, right? And it's that, the horror is not that it's blood or that it's a face, it's the realization that what you thought was normal, that your world was you were seeing things wrong. And this is what's happening, I think. And the reason is that the context has changed. The context around our concept of government has changed fundamentally. And what I'll do in this talk here is to share the Finnish in a European context, but I think those basic ideas are quite universal. Okay, so I want to speak about the growing innovation in the public sector imperative. To be future viable, governments and cities need to urgently innovate the way they function and deliver. They need to shift from a mode of optimization to one of innovation. For innovators, for designers, this means moving from the fun periphery to the serious core. And for public servants, it means moving from administrative certainty to innovative uncertainty. Cities like my own, Helsinki, have been part of a remarkable story. We were part of a national transformation, from farms to cities, from agricultural society to an industrialized society. We built our so-called Nordic model as a response to that very specific transformation. The purpose of government was clear. The purpose of education was clear, and so forth. It was assist in this transformation. But now the context has changed. We've entered a digital era, changing demographics in an increasingly fluid and resource-constrained world. Modern government, this is what I'm going to propose to you, as we know it today, was born out of two very basic principles: better engagement through better design. I want to talk about one basic concept, and then I'm going to go into a few examples. More and more, to deliver a better government that serves its purpose in this changing context, we're beginning to have to do things that we've never done before. And that means we need to shift our logics. And we frequently talk about risk and uncertainty, and we bundle them. We say, oh, okay, how do you manage risk and uncertainty? As if it's one kind of blob. And actually, there's a fundamental distinction between the two. Oversimplified, but this is kind of how government works. There are people who plan, people who implement, and then afterwards we measure and so on, and then we expect change, and then the change comes back. You could say there's policy and so on, but it's a very linear process. And in fact, the people who do policy aren't the people who are going to do implementation. And in fact, these people don't talk, and frequently these are contractors and so on, and there's so many gaps for failure. This is really long and very difficult. And what we like to do is, and politicians love big bang solutions, And it's this very linear idea. What this concept that I'm talking about prototyping and working iteratively, right, to begin to create actually the foundations of understanding of what works and what doesn't work, means that these things that live in distinct realms, and then literally in minutes, we went from this to this. We built a system with a very clear purpose, is to get those people out of that into this better world, right? And I had to point every time, I pointed this out yesterday, I was showing these slides, look at the people, and they all look the same. Okay, so we can come back to this, but I think this is an important aspect about the myth around the Nordic model. Because this is so successful, our challenge today is we don't want to change the recipe, and yet the world has changed. The question for me is, what is the purpose of government in the 21st century for Finland? Very clear what it was in the 50s and the 40s, very clear. We've completely lost the clarity of that. And just to kind of poke at this a little more, because apparently people love our education system and I'm quite critical of it, not to say that it's not performing well, but that what we've really done in my mind is not created a new school, we perfected the old concept of a school. We have the best, we've refined the industrialized, we've been really good at this, we haven't been that good at this. And I'm arguing I think we need to get better at this. And political leadership needs a lot of help right now on this end of the things. And when you reframe a question differently, it may lead you to a very different solution. Right? All right. So I want to talk about the two ends. And I'm using here kind of broad terms. When I use strategic design, design in a capacity to shape decision making. Then we have terms like service design or product design or other things which have more to do with actually individual. I won't get into the solutions for this, but you're talking about a kind of ecosystem of different kinds of solutions, and this in a way is the architecture of the solution. Yes, we do a building, but the building helps us leverage new kinds of energy production modes, food, transportation, and I'll come to this in a little bit, building codes and materials. So yes, we delivered a building, but this is really not the point. The point was this. To deliver a building that is zero carbon, that creates a new marketplace, we need to do all this other stuff. Right? I'll just explain. These are European Union directives about emissions. Okay, so give me 4 minutes more. I know you guys are going to leave in a second. We can also stop if you want to throw a question. Let's go to the service end. So I kind of talk about the kind of big systemic issues. It could be education. I wanted to bring something that was kind of closer to cities. But then there's the service, the individual little things where people connect with. This, just a typical photo of service in the public sector. It astounds me that we think this is okay. And if you went to any business, you would find this completely unacceptable, right? And yet I think the public sector has the resources and the capacities and the levers, actually I think, potentially, to exceed the standard of quality of businesses. And yet we completely underperform. There's no reason for that. All right. A program I ran when I was government, we hired designers, put them in public sector organizations. This is Jana, who was in social services, and her job was to redesign the internet interface around services. And here we were focused on families with children at risk. So this was usually violence, alcoholism, something else. Now, what would normally happen, let's imagine we have a family in crisis, it's 2 in the morning, and I need help. So today, one of my normal channels would be the internet. And if I go Helsinki Social Services, I get a website that tells me how they're organized, what departments they have, and so on and so on. Do you think I care? I do not care. I don't care. Don't tell me how you're organized. I need your service. I need your help. So we said your competition is not another government agency. Your competition is Google.